like to call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners, our October 10th, 2019 meeting. All commissioners are present and accounted for. We did meet in executive session to discuss matters permitted by law. We will have a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. And tonight, I would ask that Commissioner Pine lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everybody. First item on the agenda is petitions, complaints from citizens. Anybody wish to address the board tonight? Hearing none. Approval of minutes from our September 12th meeting.
So moved.
Second. Then second. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And minutes from our September 26th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of committees, buildings and grounds, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a short update on the solar project. The roof replacement is underway and is anticipated to be completed within the next week. Solar installation on the administration police building and public safety building should begin within the next 2 to 3 weeks. A building permit is being finalized for that work. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
Yes, thank you. Briefly, the committee met and had a rather extensive 3-hour meeting. We covered, I think, all the territory that could be covered. And so now we're coming up with recommendations and wish to present this to the whole board. So we anticipate talking about it at the next meeting. So it'll be part of the circulated draft agenda. Continue to ask any questions up until this point. Nothing's been settled, of course, but there's certainly a lot to discuss, as there always is. That's my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. The Public Works Department report for the month of September, located in the 4th Ward along Paxton Church Road, 200 feet of pipe was removed and replaced on Elmwood Drive, and sidewalks were replaced on Maple Lane. Throughout the township, 1,200 feet of sewer and storm lines were televised and flushed, which brings me to leaf collection. Beginning November 4th, leaves will be collected from the even number address sides of the street and the day following trash collection. On the following week, beginning November 11th, the odd numbers side leaves will be collected. The even and odd side patterns will continue throughout the fall. Leaf collection will end December 27th. Residents requiring leaf disposal prior to November 4th are encouraged to drop them off at the Susquehanna Township compost facility, Dig My Earth, located on the 200 Fort Hunter Road in Harrisburg. Please note the following changes for the leaf collection. The Public Works Department will no longer double bag for leaves that were not ready for collection, and the public work employees will no longer rake out leaves for the yards. Leaves must be placed along the curb for collection. Please follow these guidelines for leaf collection. Remove your car from the scheduled streets. Leaves under or around cars will not be removed. We will not provide special backup as a result for a conflict with your landscaper. Do not mix branches, grass, rocks, or garbage with the leaves. We will not collect them. Again, for more information, see the township website. This is my report, sir.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Pine has a question.
And I don't know if this should be addressed to the manager or what have you, but you mentioned, I think there a change being that the township will no longer remove leaves from lawns. I live in a section where not only is there no sidewalk, but in some areas the roads are rather narrow. And I have a special concern on one section on the northern tip of Wilhelm Road, where if, in fact, and I've actually been involved with a battle with a homeowner and actually not as much the homeowner as much as a landscape person who is under contract with the homeowner, who puts the leaves on the street and essentially makes it a dangerous condition. It's a blind area, it's a narrow area, so I'd like to present that to you. You might even be familiar with the area, because I've been involved with some discussions with, I think, either your offices or possibly the manager's office, about trying to deal with narrowing of a road to a dangerous point. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about near Hardwood?
That whole area is pretty compacted like that.
Yeah.
So in the past, we didn't have specific days in which we were collecting. This schedule's specific. So it follows the street cleaning schedule. So you'll know exactly when we're coming on your street. Everyone in their specific ward will know when we're planning on being on your street.
Well, I guess
So-
my question, though, is if this person puts the leaves, whether it's a few days before or a day before, it's going to present a dangerous condition.
Well, if they keep them slightly, well, the new equipment we have, it extends out to about 10 feet. So it's not like the old equipment where we had like a 2-3 feet swing. This has an actual arm on it, so it will extend out. So they don't have to necessarily put it in the road, but a minimum of about a 5-foot setback, we can still get to it, 5-6 foot, as long as there's no cars there. So the new equipment that we're utilizing will definitely, it will reach out to lawns pretty much within about a 5-foot reach from the curb, 5 to 6 foot span.
Right.
So there's no need to actually put them as close to the street as we usually, as in the past.
And this
Yeah, and
is
I don't think this issue is trying to address that specific circumstance. That perhaps you're trying to be clear about another circumstance that exists,
so-
and if you want to explain what
Yeah, so
some folks have.
we spent countless hours last year literally raking people's yard because that's what they expected. Well, when those things happen, we can't stay on schedule. We have probably 10 employees out, walking the whole entire township. That's over 200 lane miles, and it's merely impossible. So the calls start coming in. And, it's what's the Public Works Department doing? They should have been here a week ago. But the fact of the matter is that we can't maintain that schedule. We can't rake out around cars. I mean, this is more practical. If you move your vehicle, we'll be on and off your block in a couple of minutes versus raking under vehicles, raking out of yards. It's just insane. There's no way we could do it. It's no way possible. I mean, we had a lot of requests. People constantly rake out behind us. They wait until we go down the street, then they rake out, and then they call you guys and complain that we missed their leaves. It's just chaos. And this way, the residents will know that we're going to be on your street this day. It's not a guessing game anymore. It's not that we'll be on sometime this week. So, and naturally, that was on us, because if you didn't know when we were coming that week, you didn't know when to rake your leaves out. But now you don't know. It's going to be specific down to the day. Not so much the hour, but the day.
Had them spoiled.
That's that. Well,
Yeah.
so we just can't maintain that schedule anymore. It's impossible.
Great move.
Appreciate the clarification.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Starts November 4th.
Yes, Monday.
Health and Administration, Commissioner Barczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next scheduled yard waste pickup by Penn Waste is Saturday, October 19th, and as usual, please have all materials for collection at the curb prior to 6 a.m. that day. Thank you.
Administration Personnel, Commissioner Napper.
No report, sir.
Thank you. Police, Commissioner Engel.
No report.
Fire and EMS, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. October is Fire Prevention Month, so our volunteer firefighters are conducting dozens of public fire safety education programs. And if your organization is interested in a fire prevention program, please call Fire Marshal George Drees at 717-909-9255. Just want to remind folks that 80% of the fires in the township that are responded to are as a result of unattended or distracted cooking. So please be mindful of, things you have on the stove, in the oven, what have you. Do not leave stoves and ovens unattended. Do not leave your home if you're cooking items. And also, as temperatures are dropping overnight and it feels like fall may soon be here, wanted to remind folks that now is a good time to have your heating systems checked. If you have a chimney or anything like that, make sure it's cleaned. And And if you heat anything if you have anything other than electric heating, please have a carbon monoxide detector in your home. Carbon monoxide is odorless, it is colorless, and it can be lethal for you and your family. And make sure you have working smoke detectors in your homes. We are coming up, I guess we won't have a meeting until then, but good time to change the batteries in your smoke detector is when we fall back an hour. So if you put your smoke detectors in that rotation and change those batteries every 6 months, you should remain safe. One other reminder for those who don't have or heating systems, do not heat your home with a stove or oven. That can be an extremely dangerous situation. We've had incidents where there have been fire calls because of that. So just please be mindful of those things and have a good fire safety, fire prevention month. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Recreation, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make the announcement about Halloween. Halloween this year will fall on October 31st between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m., and we have that on our website. And that concludes my recreation report.
Planning and zoning, Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission meeting scheduled for September 23rd was canceled. The Zoning Hearing Board meeting was held on the 2nd of October. There were 3 items on the agenda. One was a request for variance to allow for a proposed front porch addition, which would be less than the required minimum front yard setback at 2021 Verona Drive. It was an R2 district. That was approved. There was a request for variance to allow an automotive repair garage and inspection station at 48A Shell Street. And a variance was also sought for having less than the required number of off-street parking spaces for that type of facility. Those variances were granted, subject to the condition that they enter into a lease agreement for shared parking with adjacent property owners. And the third item was tabled because the owner could not attend. That concludes my report.
Moving on, bids and agreements. Number 1, authorize execution of the 5-year contract extension between Susquehanna Township and Penn Waste, Inc. for the years 2021 to 2025. Is there a motion on that?
Motion.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Kratzer, can you give some of the highlights of the
Sure, I'd be happy
proposed
to,
extension?
Mr. President. First and foremost, just to be clear, the extension is permissible per the bid and agreement that the township had entered into and released back in 2015. That bid document provided for the potential of up to 5 individual single-year extensions or the ability to exercise a single 5-year extension, which is before you today, that single 5-year extension. The extension provides for a 2-year residential rate freeze for the 2021-2022 years, provides for an additional yard waste collection in June, taking the yard waste collections, I believe, from 13 to 14 annually, transitions the pay-for-bag program to what now is folks that were on low-volume generator program would be required to purchase 26 bags annually. They would have to manage those bags over the course of the year. This is proposing a transition to weekly collection, so no longer would they be required to manage bags over the course of the year, but they would have the ability to put a single bag or can out. That would begin prior to the extension period. They're proposing to begin that on January 1st of 2020. Currently, low-volume generators are required to pay a single lump sum payment. They're transitioning low-volume generators to quarterly billing. That will allow folks to more incrementally pay for the service over the course of the year. During the course of the extension, they're going to provide a no-cost annual township shredding event. I think that's something that the township has offered in the past, perhaps from the local representative or local senator's office. But this is something that Penn Waste would do. We would decide upon a date, and there would be a community event in which folks would have the ability to bring sensitive materials, confidential materials, things that they wanted shredded as opposed to disposed of traditionally. They would be able to participate in that at no additional cost. There would be no cost to us for that event. And then recognizing that occasionally there are storm events in which trees and so forth are affected, and at times that impact can be localized. We've also negotiated at no additional cost an annual allowance of up to 5 30-yard containers to be provided at specified locations to respond to storm events if we need it. So those are some of the highlights of what's proposed. Again, we went back and forth with Penn Waste. We're very aggressive in negotiating these enhancements to service, and it's before you for your consideration.
Any member of the board have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. The shredding event, although I was looking for it on that newsletter as well, and they don't make mention of it at all. But how many shredding events are they willing to have during this 5-year contract? You know?
It would be 5, so one
Once a
annually,
year.
one every year. We would have a shredding
Hey,
event
that's pretty good.
in which they would bring shredded, or service like shredded would come in, and again, it would be a community-wide event. So.
Okay. Be awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. President, I'd just like to make a few remarks because Penn Waste has already sent out a flyer in advance of the township voting on this contract to the low-volume generators, also known as the paper bag. And Mr. Kratzer already touched on some of these items, but just for clarification, the flyer sent out by Penn Waste is somewhat misleading because it says that they're eliminating the current paper bag program, and really they're eliminating the bags. And as Mr. Kratzer alluded to, there still is a low-volume program in place. All those folks are still eligible for that program, and they will actually be able to put twice the amount of trash out, but they will not have to use Penn Waste bags. They can use their own bags or simply place the trash in the can. So they'll be basically getting double the amount of trash for the same price. And perhaps if this is approved, this contract tonight, the township can put something on the website that explains it a little more clearly, and maybe on the nextdoor.com website.
Yeah, we can do that as well if we need Penn Waste to issue some sort of clarifying statement. I'm sure they would be willing to do that as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Good points. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, approval of payment application for the Wakefield Road drainage project. I can't seem to find that in my packet, but not that it matters.
I don't know if perhaps it came out after. I think it was attached to an email after.
email.
So I don't. Perhaps yours was printed before
I'm new to that.
before that. But
That pesky thing.
again, before you, this is the first and final payment application for the Wakefield Road drainage project. The amount of the payment application is $130,027. The payment does incorporate a single reconciling change order that's just reflecting actual quantities installed versus what was initially reflected on the design drawings. So that change order amount is $5,878. Again, the original contract price was $124,149, so that would bring it up to the $130,027. The payment application has been reviewed and is recommended for payment by the township engineer. I don't know if the township engineer has any additional comment.
I think you covered it all, Mr. Kratzer. Just as a point of clarification, the contract was set up as a unit price contract, which means that the contractor is paid for certain unit prices, X number of feet of pipe, Y number of feet of curbing, sidewalk, et cetera. So when, at the end of the project, the quantities are reconciled against the original bid, there's pluses and minuses. So in this case, there were some additional pipe, some sidewalks, and additional other items that were included, which represented the $5,828 additional cost. So I would recommend that the payment application paid in the amount of $130,027.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. And Mr. Grubik or Nate, what's your take on the quality of the project overall?
You did a great job.
Yep.
I'm still about it.
Red's happy?
Absolutely.
All right.
The quality and the swiftness of completion was very good compared to another project that we're dealing with, the same contractor.
Understood. All right, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next up is a lease agreement for an exciting partnership, not to editorialize. This is between Susquehanna Township and the Chris Handles Franklin Foundation relating to the Edgemont Firehouse. Pastor, do you want to summarize?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mr. President. Again, before you is a lease agreement, which we're seeking authorization to enter into between the township and the Chris Handles Franklin Foundation for use of the Edgemont Fire Station, virtually all of the areas other than the garage bays. The foundation intends to relocate their headquarters or corporate offices to the building and program the space for community use and benefit. In exchange for use of the building, the foundation would be responsible for the setup and breakdown of the social hall for planned scheduled events. Again, for some time, there have been issues with accessing the hall by the community. This would restore access to that community room. The lease term is for a single year. There is an automatic renewal provision in the lease unless either party provides notice at least 90 days prior to the expiration of the term. As the President noted, we're excited about rejuvenating this community space, making it available to folks in perhaps a more accessible fashion than if you're operating a fire company, as you would imagine, out of that building. So we believe that this is an important community asset, and this is maximizing that community asset for the benefit of the community. Also, sorry to editorialize on that, but it is before you. The document has been reviewed by the township solicitor. Document has also been reviewed by the solicitor for the foundation. Both have worked through that process well, and it is before the board for your consideration and potential action. Any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
I don't have any questions, Dave, but I'd like to make a motion that we approve a lease agreement between Susquehanna Township and the Handles Foundation for leasing the Edgemont Fire Hall.
So moved. It's been moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions?
I guess I could just make a quick comment. I want to thank everybody who was a part of this because the Edgemont Fire Hall is an institution in Edgemont, and I want to thank Manager Kratzer, Mike Miller, and especially my fellow board members. I don't think I've ever thanked you guys before, have I? Anyway,
No, certainly not.
The first time for everything.
Thank you, Mona.
But again, I'd like to thank you guys because this was something that was near and dear to me, and I appreciate all the effort that was put into it. So I want to say thank you on behalf of the Edgemont community, and I had just texted Chris. I thought he was going to be here, so I'm going to thank you all on behalf of his foundation as well. That's my comment.
And I'd like to second that. I do represent Ward 8, but grew up in Edgemont, and cannot tell you how many birthday parties, picnics, cookouts, get-togethers, family reunions there have been there. So the fact that we, good people were able to come to work out an equitable solution, and really thank the Chris Handles Franklin Foundation for stepping up and keeping that the fire hall there as a social place where people in the community can gather. A lot of great work went into that. So thanks to Chris Handles Franklin for having the foresight to do that. A fellow Edgemont resident, and all the work that went on. So I'd like to second Commissioner Johnson's comments.
And Chris Franklin is eager to get in there. You know, right now, I think he's operating his foundation, which is a very significant, we've benefited tremendously from the foundation.
Yes.
Out of his house. So he was looking for space, we were looking for somebody to occupy this and to help us out in the rentals and that sort of thing. So it was a tremendous win-win. And he's eager to get in there, and he's eager to open it up for programs for the kids and for general community use. So we're happy to work with him going down the line, and it truly is a win-win. You don't always come by those, but I think we did with Handles.
It's a blessing, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else wish to comment before we vote? And this is a vote to authorize
Yeah.
execution of it, and they're recognizing that there are a couple of spaces that need filled in and that sort of thing. Typos that don't affect the outcome or the final agreement.
You're authorizing a lease agreement. Yeah.
Got it. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys again.
All right, ordinances and resolutions. 1906 ordinance.
There,
Yes.
Did you miss one? Which one?
Consulting agreement?
Oh, this one.
All right, back to bids and agreements. Consulting agreement between Susquehanna Township and Douglas Nouse relating to the Department of Community and, what is it?
Something.
Conservation.
Conservation Natural Resources.
That's why, I haven't worked in the state for years.
But DER, does that ring a bell? Does DER ring a bell?
Yeah.
Sorry.
The peer consulting grant. And we did meet with the consultant and with the rec advisory board last month. Very productive meeting. Look for great things out of this. The board, or the chair at this point, would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there anything we need to flesh out or elaborate on this, Dave?
No, I don't think so, Mr. President. I think it's, again, just for benefit of the audience, we were fortunate. We received funding through DCNR, so we thank DCNR for their support of this evaluation. So the total cost of the contract is $11,000. DCNR will cover up to $10,000 of that $11,000 cost. The consultant, Doug, has drafted a scope, and that scope has been shared with the president and then also the chair of the Rec Advisory Committee. He'll be reaching out to each of you individually over the course of the next 3 months to make sure that he's capturing your desires and reflecting what you hope to get out of this process. So we would recommend authorization of the consulting agreement.
Any questions from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, ordinances, resolutions, 19-06 ordinance, amending Chapter 27 Code of Ordinances, adding a new term and related definition of neighborhood design development, adding such as a permitted use in the R2 medium-density residential district, and establishing specific standards governing the use thereof. We did have a hearing on this prior to this meeting. Unless there are any other questions, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
It's seconded. Any comments?
I would just like to make note of a few things. One is this neighborhood design development is restricted to parcels of 20 acres or more, which means it's very limited in terms of the number of parcels still available for development in the township that could be affected by it. It only affects R2 zoning, and it also involves the use of a design review committee similar to our Susquehanna Green project, so that we would have input on exactly what this is going to look like through that committee. So I think it's an interesting concept, and from the planning and zoning perspective, something that I think will work well.
Great.
The only thing I would add, Mr. President, members of the board, is that the ordinance has been recommended for approval by both the Dauphin County Planning Commission and the Susquehanna Township Planning Commission.
All All right, any other comments, questions before we vote? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance 19-07, vacating Dale Road, which is unopened, and the Mountain Dale subdivision by the 8th Ward.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this ordinance vacating Dale Road in the Mountain Dale subdivision.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and this was also the subject of a separate hearing before tonight's meeting, just for the record, at which the applicant did present the plan, gave us some background that was very helpful and useful, so thank you for that. Any comments, questions? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 19R27, adopting procedures for compliance with professional services of Act 44 of 2009.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Kratzer, you want to give us a brief rundown of this?
Sure. So the policy that's before you incorporates statutorily required provisions related to professional services contracts concerning the township's pension plans. Again, the policy simply incorporates the statutory requirements that the township has been complying with since the enactment of Act 44 back in 2009, just clarifying some things and making sure that it's reflective of the practice that's been going on. So.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unfinished business? Anybody have any? Reports, Mr. Kratzer.
I have nothing else, Mr. President, at this point.
Can I just say thank you very much to the President and the Commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seymour.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Chief, do you have anything?
I do not, sir.
Okay. Mr. Rubik?
Our report is in your packet, Commissioners. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and I'd also like to recognize Commissioner Fleming on him being selected as one of the under 40 finalists at an event
Great
the other
news.
night. So
Thank you.
congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Grubik.
Good job. He's under 40.
Under 40.
Apparently.
He told me he slid it under the wire.
It was close. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that.
Madam Solicitor?
You have nothing, thank you.
You're welcome. From the Fire Marshal School Board, Commissioner Fleming?
Mr. President, at this time, I see our esteemed president, John Dietrich, so I'll give him an opportunity to present if you'd like. Otherwise, I can read what you've submitted.
Just one item to note, well, three. I mean, our last board meeting was on this last Monday, October 7th.
Yeah, he's
I'm not loud enough. So our last board meeting was this past Monday, October 7th. Our next board meeting will be October 21st. As always, everything you can find everything on board docs. We utilize that. But I did want to point out at the last board meeting, we did approve the authorized issuance of a series of general obligation notes in the maximum principal amount of $36 million. $14.4 million is new bond money. The balance is refinancing of a number of series of bonds that had, were available to be refinanced, take advantage of the good rates that we have now. But again, to point out, $14.4 million in new money, and that is earmarked for capital. It'll go into the capital account, earmarked for maintenance, facilities maintenance, improvements, things like that.
Anything specifically that you're targeting? I know, just for example, they redid the HVAC at one of the elementary schools and the high school a few years ago.
Right. So we, as you know, if you come in and join us every now and then, we've had Crabtree Rohrbach.
Yes.
If you recall, they did an assessment for us, and I think it's been a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So they've done an external assessment of facilities needs. We've had our own, and we've been through, unfortunately, turnover of our maintenance director. And Mrs. Stallman has stepped up and is doing that for us now. He's been with the district for a number of years. He stepped up, and he'll do that for a few years here for us, at least. So we've had internal reviews of stuff. So basically, we have a comprehensive list, and I actually think it exceeds the 14.4 million that we borrowed.
Doesn't it always?
It always does. So we'll have to zero in on some. I know somewhat just roofing. We have 5 buildings.
Right.
I know the roofing. My recollection is that just roofing needs, and not complete roofing, but just repairing significant sections or replacing significant sections. I think came to $5 or $6 million.
Wow.
Something in that ballpark. So that was. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's a significant part, but it's a laundry list. 4 buildings, and everyone I think
Yes.
here knows how we've had the buildings for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
They're
that's
not
pretty much
new.
where it is.
What's the status of the sidewalk that's supposed to go in front of the high school?
That is an excellent question. We had,
Bless you.
so I guess the last we knew, we were doing, looking to do that, a grant deal. There was some grant funding. I can't remember, I'm not sure where it's at now, but that's the last I recall, was hoping to get some input. I remember it was the same, something that I'd seen when another school district had gotten some money for their,
Right.
for their frontage of their property. So I think we were looking to go for the same type of deal. But I don't know what the result of that, and I'm not sure when we see the result of that. Okay,
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. President.
all right, thank you.
And that concludes the report, Mr. President.
I think he just ratted you out. On attendance. Attendance is so far.
All right. We do our best.
That's scary.
was complimenting him.
Now and again.
Yes.
All right,
On the
Authority,
rare
Commissioner
occasion
Sanders.
that I can join.
Yes, thank you.
Teen Angel.
I got no argument with that.
Careful, he might sing it.
Well, I have time. I remember the lyrics.
Their way to turn the mics off.
Yeah. So the big hot topic of the year, of course, is stormwater fees. And last December, in 15 minutes, as Mr. President is fond of remembering, we ran into $1.5 million in projects that we didn't know about. And that was coincidental timing. That was all related to stormwater damage to infrastructure that had been slowly rotting for decades at a price of damaging public safety and private property. And so we are, of course, under federal requirements and, of course, through the state requirements to reduce pollution caused by stormwater runoff and to improve our systems. Pollution in this regards to phosphorus, nitrogen, even silt, dirt, not to mention oil and other carcinogens. So the township has, on many of the meetings this year, have had public hearings and public discussions about adopting stormwater fee for all properties in the township. The most recent meeting was at Progress Fire Hall last month, where we drew a crowd and explained for about 2 hours the evolution of the stormwater project study, how the technology has been used to make a very, very accurate survey of the non-porous parts of the township, meaning your driveways and sidewalks and your roofs, things like that. And the engineering, thank you, Mr. Grubik, has put together a very intense and thorough recommendation to provide a fee schedule, which will ultimately affect properties. And we expect to work with the Susquehanna Authority to include a line item on the quarterly invoice, which would indicate the amount of stormwater fee that you would need to pay, separate from your sewer bill. That money is dedicated under law to be used specifically for stormwater improvement projects. And There will be a slow, it won't all come out in January. I think we're shooting, if everything is on schedule, everything we're shooting for the March invoice, March-April time, and it is going to affect every property, including federal and state properties. So everyone pays equally or proportionally, and there won't be any exemptions. So, which is why a fee is different and better than a tax, because 22%, I think I'm right on this, of the property in Susquehanna Township is tax avoidant. It's government property or it's church property, nonprofit organization property. A fee applies to all entities, meaning that they all contribute equally to fixing the stormwater problem, which is a federal mandate. And if the township doesn't do this, the township could face fines of up to $25,000 a day, which is not to say that it will, but it's a possibility because it's currently happening in Pennsylvania and other places. So we could have another public hearing. That has not yet been set. Certainly, the Sewer Authority has been discussing it in public at its meetings, and the topic has been given a very large airing. We've been putting it out in lots of different media, and many townships around Susquehanna Township. Hampton Township, I think, comes to mind, adopted it last year. Derry Township, Lower Paxton, Swadera, everyone is developing this approach and implementing it according to their needs. The best thing to do, if you wish, is to call any commissioner or send an email or ask the township staff, how it might affect you. There are a lot of details yet to be settled. There are no hard answers right now, other than the fact that we have to implement a stormwater plan, or else this federal smackdown is going to come hard. And this is essentially an unfunded mandate, as Commissioner Fleming is so wont to indicate.
That's correct.
We're getting no federal dollars, no state dollars to implement this requirement. And we're trying to implement it on a very minimal basis so that it affects everyone accurately and equally. That's all.
So the authority's working on that.
Yes.
That's your authority report.
The authority report, yes.
It was a long one.
Yeah.
Well, long but informative.
Yeah, very
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Except call your commissioner part.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, pay me now or pay me later, anything, the 1.5 that Commissioner Sanderson referred to came up in 15 minutes back in October, $100,000 a minute. And if it didn't come out of the stormwater fee, in fact, it didn't because we don't have one yet, it comes out of your tax, out of your real estate tax. It's got to be paid. And the federal and state mandates have to be met. There's no getting around it. So our mission has been to try to find the most fair, equitable way to fund something that you can't just get around. So, thank you for that, Mr. Sanderson.
No, you're welcome. We can talk about it more if you like.
There will be additional opportunities.
Yes, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Indian Wheels, Commissioner Robarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indian Wheels is in need of volunteers to drive senior citizens to appointments. If you have some spare time and you're interested in helping out, please contact the township office for details.
Shade Tree?
Yes, briefly, the Shade Tree Commission, in conjunction with the Highway Department, will be conducting the fall planting next week, and they will be planting somewhere in the neighborhood of 32 trees in tree lawns throughout the township. And we thank them for their service.
That's next week?
Yes.
What day is that, do you know?
Well, it's 3 days, I believe, the 16th, 17th, and 18th. Did you want to volunteer?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Love to. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, put Commissioner Engel on that, too.
Wear your boots, we'll give you a shovel.
All right. Communications, Commissioner Pine?
I'd like to join that as well. On communications, Mr. President, constituents, residents of Susquehanna Township just this past week received their newsletters. But I'd like to make a mention of something, even just to repeat what Commissioner Johnson has already indicated, and that is that the newsletter indicates that the Halloween observance is on the 24th of October. That is incorrect. What happened was there was a change after the newsletter went to print. So Halloween is indeed on the 31st, despite what's indicated in the newsletter. So remember, October 31st is Halloween, despite what the newsletter indicates. So thank you, Mr. President.
But if we have a question, do we just call the commissioners?
Yeah. The ninth ward commissioner. All right, I think that's it for our reports. New business. Do we have anybody for the Human Relations Commission appointment?
Not as of yet.
All right. Steve Dorco had somebody in the pipeline, but haven't heard
Yeah,
from
he
him.
did, and I had asked him what the status of that was, and he said he was going to get back to me. He has not gotten back to me at this point.
Do they have meetings though?
No.
Not unless there's
Every 2 years, they meet to reorganize.
Right. But unless there's a
But
complaint.
they're available. to
Right.
meet, which is the key. There is a problem.
Which is good. It's kind of.
They're available. All right, commissioner comments. Anybody have any?
I made mine.
Hearing none?
Mr. President,
Yes.
move to accept the report of bills paid in the amount of, and this is a large month, $4,407,752.67.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a
Second.
motion to adjourn?
Before you, Mr. President, I can answer.
Out of order.
He's always wanted to do that.
If you would allow me, I can answer Mr. Engel's question quickly. November, we should hear a decision on the grant. So for the sidewalk grant application, we should hear a decision in December.
Good. All right.
November.
That's awesome.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Good luck and Godspeed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Stop interrupting.
Put it in our sidewalk. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, it
Yes,
was.
it was.
Yes.
And a
And I
second.
second, yeah, I second.
Shall we
So we have
discuss this?
agreement.
Well, I'd like to discuss this.
I'd like to call the question.
All in favor? Aye.